a very short. But it had like concert footage.
Speaking of short, can I tell you a short story about that relates to that cartoon? When I saw the New Kids on the Block live the first time, I've seen them twice, mind you. Once when I was like 6 years old, and a couple of the cousins in my family, we had a lot of cousins, had birthdays around the same time. So as a gift, they brought the two older girls tickets to New Kids on the Block because they were in town. 6 years old. I was like 6. I didn't even really know. I knew their songs, whatever, but I was like. But we went to this, the Carrier Dome in Syracuse. All of us cousins went. It was like this big outing. It was like our first concert. It was this huge stadium in Syracuse, New York, where the Syracuse formerly Orangemen played. So there was a huge concert. It was crazy. The beginning of the concert was the opening chords to, I guess, one of their songs. I don't remember, but they're dancing cartoons on these screens from the cartoon show, which had just come out. So the show starts and you're watching cartoons being projected on these screens, and then they burst through like right when the singing starts, and it's the real New Kids.
Oh wow,
that's awesome.
Yeah, and then
I just tell you. No, go on.
By the way,
I was gonna say. Oh yeah, sorry.
I was gonna say related to Comic-Con. They're doing that Divergent movie series, the one that's basically a ripoff of Hunger Games, and they decided, hey, we're not making any money with this movie because it kind of stinks, so we're gonna take the last movie of our franchise and turn it into a made-for-TV movie.
And then, to be fair, it was not a ripoff of the Hunger Games. It was not.
It was not?
Nope. It was its own book series before.
Well, it really feels like a ripoff of Hunger Games.
Was Katie Douglas on that one?
What, Divergent or Hunger Games?
Yeah, Divergent.
I don't know.
Okay, I think if that's the one, then I've episode of it, and it looked pretty cool. It was much more like weird than Hunger Games, though, like more painted up people, or am I thinking of something else? If that's the one, then
I think you're thinking of something else.
Okay, so tell me what Divergent is, because I know Hunger Games.
Colleen,
well,
she read the book.
I read both series of books. Both of them are basically, it's a genre which was dystopia, like post-apocalyptic worlds have occurred, and it's a whole YA, young adult, for those that may not know, but a whole young adult genre. Like, it was kind of the response to people who are not into Twilight anymore, like that newer thing was like Hunger Games and the Divergent series. Divergent is like supposed to be post-apocalyptic Chicago, and instead of like the districts in the Hunger Games, it's factions. So there's 5 factions. There's like the Brains, and the Bronze, which is like ultimately what the main character chooses to go into, like that kind of thing. They're called Dauntless, but she's Divergent, which means she could fit into any category. She just doesn't fit into one like little box, and that's dangerous. And that's what I think that was probably the downfall is because people like the Hunger Games so much better. It's a lot stronger as far as storytelling goes. So I think that's probably why people gravitated towards that. And Divergent, it's just like, we're kind of done. We're kind of living dystopia, I feel. We don't need to see it on screen. So I think that's probably why people probably why people gave up on it. I didn't like the books personally because the main character is a little annoying. So that's why I gave up on it, even though I ended up reading all of them. So
interesting.
Yeah, you gotta have a good protagonist.
Like?
I'm sorry?
What was the main character? Was it a male?
The main character was female, but so was the Hunger Games, because both Hunger Games and Divergent are told from the female's perspective. It's all first-person point of view, which is a lot of young adult is from first point perspective. All the Twilight books were from Bella's point of view. So, like, obviously watching the movies, it created something different because you needed to get outside of the main character's head. And I said, first Hunger Games, what I would have kind of preferred, book-telling-wise, if they did it sort of like a Game of Thrones sort of way.
I
feel that would have been really interesting. Like, that would have been, like, a whole different
Yeah, like having not
they were
read
ever
the
to make-
books. Yeah,
That's
sounds
the way they should do it.
strange. It seems like they would do more of a kind of global view of what's going on, because when you watch the movies, it does feel like that. But I haven't read the books. I wouldn't have expected that it was all from her point of view.
Yeah,
Do you
it's
think
all
that's-
from her point of view, and I had liked, because I didn't want to see the last movie because I didn't like how the last 2 pages of the book ended. It kind of ruined it for me. But it had a very interesting view because it's just like she's suffering. Basically, it ends with her suffering from a severe form of PTSD because of the stuff that had gone on, which is totally understandable. And I thought that was, I think, what set, like, out of the Divergent Hunger Games, what set it apart was, like, because you could identify with, like, she's been through all this stuff. Like, this seems like a very natural progression. Like a little more of a natural setup. But it's worth it. I listened to the books. Audiobooks are my friend.
Audible.
So if you ever want to give them a try, I say do the audio because
Do the book.
you can, do while you're working
Yeah,
out, driving,
I
whatever.
was not thinking of Divergence. I was thinking of Defiance, which I think was on Sci-Fi.
Yeah.
Colin, New Kids on the Block.
Yeah, you want to hear about the second time I saw them?
I want to hear the second story, and then I have a story I heard from Jordan Knight that I want to tell you guys, which is
but we really
sad.
stick to topic because we're probably losing people.
I'll just say where and
think
when
everyone
I saw
loves
them.
The New Kids. Yes, please.
I'll just say that several years later, after seeing them as like such a young kid, I saw them, I guess, 20-something years later when they were at Madison Square Garden a few years ago, maybe 5 years ago. It could have been longer, but I saw them because my friend at the time worked at a bank that had these seats that they always had a box seat at every show, like one of those like with beers, like free beer and all this shit. And
oh my God, I've been at an MSG box. It's amazing.
Dude, it's amazing. So he got them because the guy he worked for, an executive, was like, if there ever was a show that no one is going to, you can have the seats. And he found out his wife is a huge New Kids fan from a kid, as you know, since she was a kid. Like, it's ironic, but she still loves the shit. But so he was like, he got 4 tickets. So I went with my then girlfriend and 2 other people, and it was fucking amazing. Actually, it was really fun. I mean, this concert was ridiculous, but I couldn't believe I was seeing them for a second time. There's my story.
Jordan Knight said that amazing how selling out, like you mentioned the dome you saw them at in Syracuse. And he said they were selling out these giant arenas. And he said it went in one day. It went from these gigantic places to 100 people in the crowd. He said it was the fall of that group, he said, was just astronomical. He couldn't believe it, and even looking back on it, it was amazing how people just stopped coming, just ended. I got to go to a box for a hockey game once, and it was great. Like, I remember because I wasn't important enough, I guess, the company that had invited me didn't give me enough beer. So I asked the lady that was like in charge. And by the way, the box I was in was for a big, large bank. And they had outside of their box was a picture of Liberace, Hulk Hogan, and Mr. T and Wendy Richter, which I thought was pretty awesome from WrestleMania 1. And she went and got a beer and ice cream bars for some reason. So we got a bunch of like weird ice cream bars. But I loved the MSG. I love everything about it.
Speaking of wrestling, going back to Comic-Con, they did announce they're coming out with the actual Booty-O cereal from the New Day.
So tell me about this. What is it going to be? I mean, are we looking at like a Lucky Charms type cereal?
It looks like it's going to be a Lucky Charms type cereal. For those who don't follow wrestling like Colleen, there's a trio. I know you used to, but I'm talking about now. There's a group called the New Day, and they're like really comical, really geeky. They were at Comic-Con. They're actually getting their own pop figures for the WWE line.
So they're like nerd wrestlers? Is that the thing?
They are, yes.
Sort of
It's like Big Bang Theory wrestlers?
They are as geek friendly as you can be. I mean, these are guys that'll go out there. This past week on Monday Night Raw, Xavier Woods spent quite a few minutes talking about Pokemon Go
Yes.
and naming all the Pokemon.
Well, Xavier Woods is like the king of the three of them as far as geekdom goes. He has his own show on YouTube, Up, Up, Down, Down, where he plays video games with other wrestlers.
So now they have a cereal? Is that what's the deal with that?
The thing is, they came up with the idea for this cereal called Bootios. And I guess, I don't know how it came about, but basically they had come out with a t-shirt, and now I guess
in a Bootios box, so like a traditional cereal box with their faces on them. And even at WrestleMania, yes, they actually came out of a giant cereal box on their way to
dressed
press.
as Dragon Ball Z characters.
Oh wow, I gotta see this.
Yeah,
but that reminds me of Suicide Squad has a cereal coming out. The Joker owes.
They do?
Is that I saw an image. It might have been like just promo material, but where I saw it posted, they said it was going to be like limited edition or something.
Yeah, I don't know if Bootios is limited edition. I don't know who's making it, but I have a picture on the YouTube now. It kind of looks like Cheerios mixed with Lucky Charms type marshmallows. So
I'm in. I'll try some Bootios.
So yeah, diabetes.
Yeah, I can't eat cereal because I drink the milk and it gives me a tummy ache. Sucks. I used to love that shit.
I want more cereal in my life. I was talking about this recently. I remember like how much I loved eating grape nuts as a kid. Just like getting a bowl of those rocks, putting them in the water until they got really soft.
Tear out the roof of your mouth.
No, that was Captain Crunch Berries. Let's be fair.
I heard that on the last Drunk on Disney.
That's right. We were just reminiscing about cereal, and I realized I don't eat cereal now. I should. I love cereal.
Golden Grams were good, man. Golden Grams, Frosted Flakes, Lucky Charms.
Remember
Golden Grams you had to eat real fast before they got soggy.
I don't know. I kind of like... But I kind of like soggy cereal. I was like, for me, it was like a different experience. I liked them each way. I liked them unsoggy and soggy.
It was all sugary, so it didn't really matter.
I used to be a Kix fan, and now I've gone back to Kix, and that's where pretty much sticking. Well, Kix honey.
You have Special K in the house too.
That's my mother's.
Oh, it's still
good. Was that the strawberries in it?
No, plain Special K.
You can put fresh strawberries in it. Which
you can. It's true.
Well, that was always
you're allowed.
Like they'd be like, it's part of this complete breakfast, and there was like a stack of hot cakes, and there was like a bowl of fruit, and there was a glass of orange juice. I was like, wait, that's not a complete breakfast. That's like 3 or 4 breakfasts you got there.
Lately I'm partial to Raisin Bran. I don't know what it is.
Raisin Bran does kick ass.
What I liked about Raisin Bran was that in the commercials, the son would wear sunglasses as he poured the 2 scoops.
That is an interesting thing, yeah.
Yeah, he would wear sunglasses to protect himself from himself.
That's kind of a common 90s image, too, right? I've seen that before, other places, with the son wearing sunglasses. I never really thought about how strange that was.
Yeah, he was like, oh, man, that Earth is emitting too much light. Let me put on some sun.
What would be the human equivalent? Like, what would we wear that would be, like, that might be a little too out there, but...
Well, it would be, no, the human equivalent would be like if somebody had like been radioactive, yet they wore a radiation suit around other people to protect them from the other people's radiation. The sun was just all about it.
It's like saying, I'm burning myself.
Yeah. So what else is going on? I know Ghostbusters. You got you got toys.
Yeah,
I was just gonna say.
Has everyone here seen Ghostbusters yet?
I have seen it.
Yes.
All right. So I have not seen it.
You have not seen it.
but I've
Well,
not
I
seen it.
didn't
But
know,
I
so
don't
I was
plan
saying
on
yes.
seeing it soon. So yeah, so I have not. I don't plan on seeing it in the next in the theatrical run. So just because not a lot of time to go to the movies, so I'm cool with it being spoiled for me because when I eventually get around to watching it on some kind of streaming something or other, I won't remember this conversation.
Okay.
Well, you should see Secret Life of Pets, though.
Oh, yeah,
I've heard good
we
things.
did see that. We saw
It was very
It's-
much worth it,
Ghostbusters as
and
well, but we saw Secret Life of Pets.
My 5-year-old came back and I said, "How was it?" He goes, "Snowball pooped and it was like little round circles." And I was like, "Oh, it sounds like."
Yeah, Kevin Hart
If
was
only.
basically the whole movie.
Who?
Kevin Hart.
Kevin Hart?
The comedian.
and the one who was Gigi, right? The little puff.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and of course Dana Carvey.
Did you guys like Ghostbusters?
Yes,
I enjoyed
highly.
it.
And also, if you very end,
Are you a fan of the original?
yes,
I thought it was
I
not
liked
bad.
it.
I didn't
I
think it was
mean-
bad.
a fair. I think it was a fair update, and of course, probably. You know what I had heard prior to it, and a lot of it would. No offense to the gentleman on the podcast, but it was a lot of men prior to it that were like, even the ones that said, "Oh no, we were fans, we're going to give it a try," they still went there and said, "Nope, hated it."
Wait,
Yeah,
who-
I don't know how anyone could straight up hate it. It did have a good spirit. I had some issues with the story not making sense to my sensibilities, like from what I like out of a story, but I was drawn in. I didn't find it as funny, but like that's not like, I mean, they updated the humor for modern humor. I mean, the original Ghostbusters was of its time. You can't really expect that humor, but it didn't really resonate with me all the time. A lot of shit felt flat, but I don't fault them because there was other people around me laughing. I'm like, it's just not necessarily my sense of humor.
Yeah.
But it had heart, and it cared about its characters, and it did that well. And it was actually entertaining. There were some pretty cool scenes in it, but like story-wise, it lost me in a few places. But
Well,
Well,
I
here's
think
the
I
thing.
also had liked because another critique was with Leslie Jones. Yes, Patty. With
it was
her
great.
character.
She was really great in the movie.
Well, because like a lot of people were like, "Oh, she's playing like the tip. Like, why can't she be the scientist? Why can't she be as smart? Like, why does she have to be the like like a
Right.
stereotypical character?" But yet, when you're watching the movie, I felt like she wasn't the stereotypical character that
No, she wasn't.
Let
that
me
she
ask
could
you
have
guys a
been.
question.
Like, I feel like they kind of expanded it a little bit more. Like, it wasn't like, oh no, well, she's just, she's not as smart as these guys.
No, she had insight. She had good scenes where she was driving the story, and she wasn't just. I mean, the trailers did not do the character justice.
That's what I wanted to ask.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I feel like the trailers depicted what sounds very different than what you guys are saying.
Well,
Well, look at yeah.
Here's my take on the whole Ghostbusters thing. See, when I grew up on the original Ghostbusters, it's my, I don't want to say it's second because it's like in tandem with Back to the Future, my favoriteest movie of all time. I grew up with Ghostbusters. I love Ghostbusters dearly. My first date with Colleen was next to the Ghostbusters firehouse. This is how much
Nerd.
how prominent Ghostbusters is to me. So
Right.
I went in when I first read about that. They announced, oh, they're gonna reinvigorate the franchise. They're bringing in Paul Feig and his ladies, and I'm like, well, I won't pass judgment until I see the first trailer. So the first trailer happened. Everyone hated it, and I'm like, well, it looks funny. And then the second one came out, and it looked funny too. And I said, regardless, we're gonna go see it, and we saw it. And to be perfectly honest, I didn't go in thinking, oh, this is going to ruin my childhood. This is going to be, this is going to like overwrite the original Ghostbusters. I was like, no, it's a new telling of the Ghostbusters. Sony wants to make money off the franchise. They want to bring it back in a different way. And Bill Murray's being an ass. So let's keep the spirit of Ghostbusters alive in a new retelling of the movie. And
Yeah, and I think,
exactly what Colin said. It had heart. It had a lot of heart, and it also it. And I even tweeted Paul Feig, and he favorited it, which I was glad because I figured he would. Um, but I told him he didn't ruin my childhood. He honored it.
Yeah, jokes not landing here and there is not going to make me like if they don't land with me, that's fine. You know, not every movie does, but it did. It felt like they weren't phoning it in.
No, and
you know,
it also it kind of maintained the Ghostbusters spirit with a typical Paul Feig movie. You know, minus the crudeness and the cursing and everything.
It did feel like Ghostbusters, and they had really cool paranormal shit. They treated that, you know, with a sense of realism to an extent, less than the originals. I mean, there was no testing of a proton pack, and then you're flying around like with like a fire hose. You know, there was a lot more. You know, it was less subtle than the original, which I can see why people knee jerk are going to be like, no, but it's fine because it's such a well-worn property at this point. It means so much to people. If it comes across a little like a parody of the Ghostbusters at times, I don't think that's the worst thing because a little self-awareness in that form I don't think is a bad thing.
No, I think also going into it because for the longest time they didn't want to do, like, Bill Murray was the holdout of doing a third Ghostbusters.
Right.
Because his whole thing was not doing sequels to begin with. Like, getting him to even do Ghostbusters 2 was a big...
Right.
And so, like, and then, of course, with the unfortunate passing of Harold, you weren't going to get that Ghostbusters. There was no way. I thought the cameos were subtle and decent.
Yeah.
They weren't...
They didn't bother me, yeah.
No, I thought they were very well... You know.
I thought Dan Aykroyd was way better than I thought because I had heard the description of the scene and I'm like groaning in my head. And then he comes on and he actually plays the part well. It's like he's a cabbie, and I thought he actually did a good job. It's strange. I wasn't expecting that.
It's funny because someone has a fan theory now that maybe the original Ghostbusters were like, I guess, like Men in Black. Basically, and everyone in the city was like Men in Black, where they, you know, neuralized, where they forgot the original Ghostbusters and the original.
It could be. We know Stay Puft exists in this universe.
Well, I'm gonna go with X-Men redid it all, because you know.
X-Men Ghostbusters crossover.
Oh, like
I think IDW Comics is going to do that.
Basically, like Terminator Genesis, where they just ignored the last 2 or 3 movies and were like, okay, we're going to start over from the first one and then deviate.
It was the Weeping Angels from Doctor Who.
That movie wasn't that bad, Terminator Genesis, because it showed some cool things.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, screw it. It was better than the last sequel, for sure, and probably the last 2, honestly.
It's nice to meet you, John Connor.
Definitely, when you're watching... And also, it is not, like, if your child is in the room, Guy, it is not a bad thing where you're like, oh no, my kid can't see this part. I think Ghostbusters is fair. I mean, there's some things that you maybe like, no, don't want him to see, but I don't think it's like something where it's not like, oh no, my kid can't watch this whatsoever.
I think as a kid, sometimes you gotta let kids get scared because we have fond memories of those moments. We're like, that was so scary, because I was scared of Ghostbusters when I was a kid. So I think there's something to be said about letting kids experience not the a little bit of fear at the movies. I mean, is that like cruel? I don't know. I think that it's kind of like a fun part of it.
No, there's certainly a fun, if you're a kid or an adult, to being scared. I mean, and my kid really likes the old movies. He liked the cartoons, actually, particularly the other Ghostbusters cartoon that the unrelated one that was based on the
Filmation one.
Oh man!
Oh,
because that's where we started by watching that. But here's my thing about the female casting is that Paul Feig. What bothered me about his him being upset with people not accepting it is that that was a gimmick that he did, though. He did it intentionally to do something different. And so it's not like he was like, okay, we're casting, and the first person that does the best role we're going to cast. He went into this saying we're going to try something different. And so if some people say, hey, I don't like your different thing, you got to say, hey, that's that makes sense because we're doing something different. Yeah, because I mean, it's I kind of find it disingenuous to act like people aren't that he was hoping that would make people want to see it. He didn't do that just as a there's no difference. He did it because he thought that would be a.
Also, that's kind of his. For lack of a better word,
now
shtick.
I've never seen, to my knowledge, I've never seen any of his movies. He did Bridesmaids, and what else? What is he known for?
Spy, The Heat. I feel like there's another movie.
I don't think I've seen any of his films because I've never seen Bridesmaids or The Heat.
They're really funny movies. They're crude. That's why I said Ghostbusters felt a little bit like a Paul Feig movie, but it didn't have like the cursing.
Like Judd Apatow.
I would say no. The Heat is not as Heat with Sandra Bullock is not as crude as Bridesmaids and Spy.
So Heat was the one with Sandra Bullock. I was in Chicago, and it was like at a hotel that only had like 3 channels or something. There's like no cable, and that movie was on. And it was the first movie of his I had seen, and I only caught like the last 45 minutes or something. But it wasn't bad. I think that like the scenes I saw of Bridesmaids were kind of like I was like I don't really respond to this humor necessarly, but that movie seemed more. Yes, yeah. My girlfriend doesn't like it at all.
But Heat, I would have to say, also back to New Kids on the Block because a New Kids on the Block member was in that.
Sure.
I think that's kind of where maybe he got the idea for like because it was a buddy cop movie, but it's 2 women, and maybe that's where he kind of got the branch idea of the Ghostbusters with the all-female cast because that's kind of what Ghostbusters was. It was a buddy.
Right. Good point.
Yeah, buddy.
What if Sandra Bullock was in? What if Sandra Bullock was in the new Ghostbusters? That might have been a brilliant
you'd have
missed opportunity.
About any movie with Sandra Bullock, I think.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think Sandra Bullock would have been better than Kristen Wiig. I won't lie.
Maybe they should have had a Sigourney Weaver analog.
But I feel like Kristen Wiig, like her humor on a lot of people falls flat. I mean, like I feel like only certain people get like her quirkiness. Like I think she was fine in Despicable Me too, but it's really like you already had the quirkiness with Kate McKinnon, and you didn't. I don't think you needed the Kristen Wiig on top of it. I think Sandra Bullock would have been a decent balance.
Yeah.
To that and it would have been funny for her hitting on Chris Hemsworth, but that's besides the point.
So we have late breaking news from Comic-Con.
Donald Trump is ruining it. What?
Suicide Squad was canceled.
No. And you'll see it momentarily. But apparently they are resurrecting the Blair Witch.
Oh, God.
I'm excited. No.
I know. I mean, Guy, I am excited, too. I fucking love the Blair Witch.
I love the Blair Witch. I went back. So within the past 6 months, I went back and I rewatched the Blair Witch. And then I watched the second one. And I got really into some of the expanded universe, some of the books and things. I love
supplementary material is great.
Yeah, the first Blair Witch. So I went back and rewatched it, and I'm still fascinated by it. The idea of how they made it just is so interesting to me.
It's still so good, though.
The first one was okay. I never really got around to watching the second one, but it's funny because apparently they faked everyone out at Comic-Con because they had a movie called The Woods that was supposed to come out this September, and then they're like, nope, it's going to be the Blair Witch.
Oh, really? That's what that is?
Yeah.
That's intriguing because I was following The Woods and I saw a preview. So that is the Blair Witch?
That's the Blair Witch, yep.
Dude, that preview looked badass.
I haven't seen the preview.
I'm ready to go to Burkittsville again. I'm telling you, I love it.
Hell yeah, man.
I'm probably going to pass on this. I don't know what you think, Colleen.
Boo.
My little quick story with Blair Witch. That is the only. I used to hate reading as a kid, and that was the only movie that I remember I'd rather read a book than watch it. And I have to say, to the Blair Witch's credit, I got a good practical joke on my mother as a result. Because my mother was terrified. We're watching, and I'm like, all right, this is dumb. I'm like, all right, okay.
In fairness, most
Well,
of the
when
movies...
did you see it?
Huh?
When did you see it, though? When it was brand new or when it was not brand new?
When it was brand new, it was in the theaters.
Okay, see, because I saw it in the theater and I just fell for everything about how I knew a lot about how it was really a work, but I just loved the concept of it. I thought it was, I really got into watching these kids just, go through the woods and get lost and more lost, and it felt real.
No, I think I just was just like, this is all a bunch of, like, I guess maybe having seen like certain horror movies like as a kid, and I'm just like, nah, this is fake. This is like I couldn't buy into it. There's like a lot of other movies that are just like, have left me freaky and left me chills, and like that just didn't do it for me.
See, I was thinking that if you said, oh, I saw it 3 years later, I feel like so many other people have done the found footage thing and I think this is true with a lot of just not even just movies, just a lot of entertainment and everything, that if you're the first person to do something over time, that becomes less and less interesting. But I felt like, that movie to me was so interesting to me. I was so fascinated by what.
Did you see the sci-fi like mockumentary? Yes. That was that's like good. Basically like a prequel or a sequel. It's like an hour-long thing, and it's totally done like a news story. Yeah, it's badass.
Like it's totally real.
Well, we're in on it. I looked up the Woods Blair Witch. I don't see this reveal yet.
Check the site I looked up was Bloody Disgusting.
I like that site. Although they've gotten into reviewing more like metal bands as part of their thing. I don't know if they always did that and I didn't notice, but it's kind of... I'm noticing that.
I'm looking at my Facebook feed now to see the top stuff. Did anyone see they're coming out with a Hey Arnold movie?
Never saw that show.
It was good when I caught it. And hey, the Rocky Horror Picture Show trailer dropped. Right. I don't know if anyone wants to go watch that.
Right, with the woman from Orange is the New Black is going to be Count Rockula or whatever his name is. I forget his name.
Furter.
Right, Dr. Frank Furter, right?
Yep.
I did the one midnight showing of that, and it was actually amazing. I did it here in New York. It was actually amazing. Went for a birthday.
When it was on Broadway, that was my Sweet 16.
Awesome.
Luke Perry was Brad.
I went when it was on Broadway. Penn and Teller were the narrators, and Bret Michaels was in the cast.
Oh, wow.
Are you saying that Teller narrated as well, or did he gesture?
Yeah, no, he just stood there.
Anna Gasteyer was Columbia. I know a friend of mine saw it when Joan Jett was Columbia. So
cool.
I was like, oh, it was definitely. And I think actually, speaking of Orange is the New Black, somebody else from Orange is the New Black was in the Broadway. I think she was in the original Broadway cast as Meatloaf's part. Eddie.
Aha. I think they have a really handsome Eddie for this one, right? I saw a picture with a handsome Eddie, and I was like, eh. Or maybe it was a handsome, the guy with it was the comb-over guy. They have a handsome version of that comb-over ghoul.
I don't know.
Now it's going to bother me who was the one that's on the soundtrack. Let me go look up Orange is the New Black. That'll save me a whole lot of anger.
Guys, I gotta drop off soon. Is there any burning questions you'd like to ask me before I have to go?
What do you think of the new Netflix Marvel stuff?
The Daredevil was great. I haven't seen the Jessica Jones. Is that what it is? Yeah, Jessica Jones.
Yeah, but they announced like the next 3.
Oh yeah, no, I'm into it. I'm totally into it. Luke Cage looks cool. I don't know a lot of those characters. I'm a DC guy, but I thought Daredevil was really well done. Each season drags a little bit in some spots, but they make up for it. And it probably as a weekly show would play even better. But since you're doing it all at once, it's just a little bit of filler there. But yeah, I'm all for it. I wish they would do that with more characters, like small scale, 8-10 episode Netflix type shows. I mean, that's a great format for a lot of characters.
Colin, let me ask you how old you are.
34.
All right, so 34 years old. What are some of the childhood series that they haven't brought back? Because much of what we watched when we were all younger, they bring back, in some form or other.
Well, obviously, Back to the Future.
Mask is one that I'd like to see. Well, Back to the Future.
Wait, Mask? You mean the Eric Stoltz Cher movie?
No. M-A-S-K.
Not that Mask and not the Jim Carrey Mask. The other Mask.
Yeah, M-A-S-K.
Right.
Motorized.
Mobile Armored Strike Command.
Yes, I love that.
This is what I would like to see come back. Cops, Central Organized Police Specialists. Remember that shit?
I'm sure they probably will. But Mask, they're actually putting Mask into a whole universe.
Oh,
is that part of the Transformers and all that, or is it different?
Well, here's the thing. There's two different ones. There's the comic. IDW's coming out with a comic book series called Revolution, which is basically going to be Transformers, G.I. Joe, Mask, ROM.
IDW is so great.
Oh, yeah. I'm digging IDW. They do the Back to the Future comics.
Yeah.
Also...
they do all that stuff.
Paramount is supposedly doing their own universe, and I don't know if it's linked in with Transformers, but they had wanted to do G.I. Joe, Mask, ROM, Micronauts, and Visionaries.
Do it.
Yeah, exactly.
But Cops was like G.I. Joe in some urban metropolis thing, and it was like, dude had like I don't even know, they were like sort of cybernetically enhanced, I think, a few of them.
Oh, yeah.
But Back to the Future is an interesting thing because I bet you there's like forces at work to try to revive that, but, word gets around, no one's going to piss off Robert Zemeckis.
Well, from what I understand, I read an interview with Zemeckis where he said that he alone, not Bob Gale, despite what Bob Gale will tell you, has the power to say yes to them doing anything with that series, and which is amazing. It's amazing that any director had that power to. Yeah,
he had a good deal at somewhere down the line. Yeah,
that's really unusual. But
didn't all the Ghostbusters have to sign off on any remake, right? I mean, or at least Aykroyd and Ramis.
I think so.
Yeah.
I feel like, he says that he's not into them doing it, but he lets them do. They're now doing this new comic book, and I feel like at some point, if the right thing came along, he could be convinced that.
I get that feeling too.
I don't feel, as much as he says no, there won't be another one. I feel like he's looking at it from a perspective of, yeah, let's do it this way. But I always feel like with all these things, eventually, part of it is obviously money, but I'm sure like him, like most people in his situation, maybe he's like, gee, I could use a yacht or a new house. But I think there's also the,
he's got kids and getting married and stuff probably.
But sometimes I feel like people come to them, like who knows, Ghostbusters, before Paul Feig said, hey, an all-female cast, that may have been the thing that they were like, hey, that's a new angle that we haven't done. I like.
Dude, honestly, that was what made it seem not stale to me. I was following Ghostbusters 3 rumors for fucking 20 years. Oh and all of a sudden they dropped that it was going to be all female, and I was like, this is the way to go. It seemed fresh again.
Yeah. That's to me, like when I heard about it, and this is why I say, people that were turned off by it, that makes sense to me, because when I heard about it, I liked the idea. But the fact that I liked it means it makes sense that some people wouldn't like it. It's like when they did the Honeymooners, they did a remake with Cedric the Entertainer. And
right. I never saw that. Was that any good?
You know what? It wasn't terrible, but I'm a big fan of the Honeymooners, and it wasn't the Honeymooners. Like,
Right.
it wasn't just that they were like, we're going to do an all-black cast. They were like, and it's going to take place in the year 2007 or whatever year it was. And so once you move those characters out of that time period, you really lost, like Ghostbusters works any time period. That, once you move them to modern day, it was like, I don't know. I mean, there were a lot of like risque jokes and stuff, and I was like, this is just not right. Everything's wrong.
Yeah, it wasn't making the jokes that it should have. Like, I was listening to something like David Truman was doing an interview, and he said like All in the Family could never be on the air today, like because the jokes that
oh my god, no, I mean there. If you watch an All in the Family today, your jaw will drop 7 or 8 times, and then you'll be like, "This was 1973 that they were doing."
Well, everybody talks about how progressive it is, but it's really just white people giggling about racial humor because they're like, "It's okay for us to." It's not that progressive as they say. It kind of, I don't know, man. I don't really like that show, honestly. I don't think that.
Well, it was years backlash to the like the Leave It to Beaver kind of stuff. Like this, like Leave It to Beaver is not the way people really act. Like
right, okay, yeah.
Like this, like if you look at it in the sense of like he goes, no, we have people like this. You know what I'm saying? Like, and the guy who played Archie Bunker, he was actually a very liberal.
Yeah, of course, yeah. He was, you're right.
But he was just putting in a frame of like, no, we don't have June Cleaver. It's actually there's a lot of Archie Bunkers in the world, and if you watch the convention, yes, you agree.
They were trying for something, but it was a little. I think it's a little naive though, looking back on it. But I gotta go. But I wanted to say one like short thing about these franchises because it popped in my head when you're talking about what hasn't been revived. I just want to say, like, with all the sequels and reboots and like reviving things, there's something I think a lot of people hate it, but I wanted to just see what you guys thought about this, which is that I like reviving this old stuff because I feel like in the modern like landscape of like the way franchises work and learning, from the past, and like they can get a good writer to revive Jurassic Park or something. It's like it's kind of tempting to think that maybe all those sequels you imagined as a kid could actually happen now, and they can revive these things. And like,
sure.
I mean, if they dug up Back to the Future, I wouldn't sneer at it. I would be like,
well, I mean, and not to sidetrack you, but Jurassic World I thought was excellent. I mean,
it was good. Yeah, I mean, there was some silly moments, but it was
yeah. But as a big fan of those films,
I have a question for you. Like,
good.
Jurassic World was basically Jurassic Park redone. Like, it was the same exact storyline,
right?
Done. Whereas Ghostbusters is kind of the same thing, but how come Ghostbusters got the backlash and Jurassic World did not?
I think Ghostbusters, from being a person who was on all those message boards, because I'm like a total nerd like that, and I read what everyone has to say, I honestly, on most of the main sites, like Reddit, all that shit, I didn't see a lot of sexism. I saw the occasional thing, but you're like, that's obviously a 12-year-old or something.
Well,
I think that it was when yeah.
I was going to say that there was a much bigger time span between the last Ghostbusters film and Jurassic Park 3. And so you were not reviving a property that was that old. I mean, to the point that the people that were watching Jurassic Park were in their 20s when they were putting, the people that were kids. But the people that were kids in the other one, they're 40 years old. And
also,
it's a lot harder to look at that and say, no, that's not what I saw as a kid. I feel
didn't they just put like 3D Jurassic Park in the theaters? Like, it's actually had a theatrical run recently, so it's still,
I feel like Jurassic Park, I feel like there's a different fan base, and I'm a much bigger fan of Jurassic Park, but I feel like it has a much, like Ghostbusters had a very, like, people felt like they were attached to it, like it belonged to them. Whereas Jurassic Park, for people that were fans of it, it felt like, yeah, that was the film that my mom, my grandmother, my dad, my brother, everybody loved.
Interesting. That's a good point. Yeah, I see that.
And I think that it people didn't feel this. It was very few people, it was their favorite thing. It was one of their favorite things. But I know a lot of people that Ghostbusters is their favorite thing.
It's one of my favorite things. I'm definitely a Ghostbusters geek. But guys, I just want to say I have to go.
I gotta go. So you get off, and then we'll keep.
But I just want to say thank you so much for having me on, Colleen. It was very nice to meet you virtually.
You too, Colin. Very nice.
I think it's cool we have similar names, so that's cool.
Oh,
but I had a blast, guys. Anytime you want me to come on, I'll chat with you guys. It was fun.
Absolutely, and people at home, listen to Cosmic Cast Off. It's a great show. We love having it on.
Yes. Thank you so much. Yeah, listen to Cosmic Cast Off. Definitely check out all the shows. I do. I love them. It's a fucking fun network, and I'm glad to be a part of it. And John, Guy, and Colleen, have a great night.
You too, sir.
Peace.
Good night.
The other thing I really think that's incredibly important, I knew very little about the new Ghostbusters, like very little. I hadn't followed any of it until I saw that trailer, and I was like, wow, this looks really bad. I mean, not bad like I wouldn't go see it, and if I saw it, I wouldn't enjoy myself. But I was like, this looks really bad. I mean, it looks like goofy, and like the jokes were flat, and everything was very like if you just ground up a bunch of other comedies and put them into a grinder, that's what you'd get. So I think that's part of it, and I think another big part is Jurassic World doesn't rely on comedy, and comedy changes over time, but action doesn't change, especially science fiction action. I mean, doesn't change that much. You watch The Lost World from 1925 and compare it with an action film, The Lost World of 1997, and you've got a very similar. The effects get better, but the actual vibe of what the story is. I mean, we're conditioned with action films to say the story's not good, but we're watching it for another reason. So I feel like that's another huge reason.
Well, the other thing, and they've said all of Paul Feig's movies have trailers that really don't do like help. Yeah.
Well, I mean, the trailers, movies, I've seen a lot of movies over the years that have had bad trailers, but I think the female aspect of it, I mean, look at the fact that in the 70s, 1979, I believe, we had Alien. An Alien, had a female protagonist. I don't really feel that, I mean, because I don't feel like that is the reason. I think there's other reasons. I feel like that's kind of the thing that when it sucks and you can't figure out why, you say, well, that's the reason, if you're, on both sides of the argument. But I feel like that's not the reason. We've had a lot of bad remakes. Let me tell you, Godzilla, they remade Godzilla and they destroyed, thank God they've been able to bring him back since then. But in 1998, Roland Emmerich said, oh, it always looks so stupid. It was a man in a suit. And then they made this horrible movie, and then Planet of the Apes, Tim Burton, who is a great director and a visionary, was like, oh no, let's see how bad I can do this franchise. And he damn near killed it. So it's not like this is the first time somebody's had an idea that people balked at. I feel like that's not that's not the first time anybody's done that.
When Warner Brothers decided, hey, Christmas Story is such a popular movie, let's make a direct-to-TV sequel, DVD sequel with no one from the original cast.
And I've now seen that. Now, the one thing I will say about that is that the writings of it's Gene Shepard, right? Is the gentleman who would do and Gene Shepard. They did make other stories with those characters. Right. I think one called Ali Hoopanoodles. I've now gone ahead and watched them all, and it's so distant that it's like you're like, what am I watching? This is, in what way is this Christmas Story? But
if you ever read the book A Christmas Story, the actual movie itself is like the Christmas part of it is so small, it's actually only part of a bigger story of his childhood. So it's just like, wow, this is strange and ruining my whole childhood by listening to this.
Let me recommend Gene Shepard. I'm going to type it into YouTube and see if the video is still there, because it was there years ago, and you never know if things stick around.
While you're doing that, I have another quick topic,
Well,
Comic-Con
no,
related.
this is very quick, and this will take just 10 seconds. I just want to make sure if I tell people it's there that it is there. But if you type Gene Shepard and beer into YouTube, the first video that'll come up, it's only 10 minutes long. It's 9 minutes and 58 seconds. Gene Shepard talking about beer, and it's one of my favorite videos. I've watched it 100 times. And so if you want to hear the voice of a Christmas story talk about, or the Carousel of Progress people talk about beer, it's great. All right, John, what do you got from Comic-Con for us?
Pop figures. We all have heard of them. Some of us have a lot of them. What does everyone think about, like I mentioned at the beginning, the man with the red hair, with the orange hair and the white skin, Conan O'Brien.
Does he have?
He has 4 at Comic-Con.
Are they all brand new?
Yeah, they're all collectibles. He had done this similar thing last year where it was like generic ones of him. I think there was one of him as Batman. There was one of him as a zombie, as Frankenstein. And this year, I guess, with the Comic-Con synergy, they were able to elaborate on that. I posted.
Now, I gotta say, I was a huge fan of him when he was on NBC as the host of Late Night with Conan O'Brien. I watched when he was on The Tonight Show. I watched the first episode. I watched a bunch in between during his short run. And then he went to TBS, and I have not caught a second of his show. Have you watched it?
Very sporadically. I mean, I've tuned. I didn't have TBS for a while. I got it recently. I have an episode recorded because I want to watch. He had cast members from all of the CW DC comic shows: Supergirl, Arrow, Flash.
I feel like that as a thing, late night television, that way, that style of late night TV is not a thing anymore. I feel like,
I don't really
live in a different era. Yeah, I feel like it's not. I mean, there was a time where that was where you saw the cutting edge. Like, I thought David Letterman was funnier every night than Saturday Night Live was once a week, for 30 weeks out of the year. I thought David Letterman cracked me up. And then over time, I thought he wasn't funny anymore, and I thought that was part of that is you get older, you're especially if you get older and you're super rich, you stop being funny, and that's understandable. It's hard to keep that up forever.
Well, it's funny. I was listening to there's a channel on Sirius XM that has like random talk shows, and one of them, the guy was talking with Kevin Pollak. And even Kevin Pollak, they were talking about Johnny Carson. And they were saying, like, the difference between, like, the Johnny Carson era and even, like, the David Letterman era, like, the new stuff, it's like they want to make it more of a variety show than a straight-out talk show.
Well, so it's going in cycles because it used to be variety shows and now it's back to, then it was to talk shows and now it's back to variety.
Could be.
I think Fallon is very good. I think Colbert is terrible. I think Colbert should stick with doing his character. I know he started doing his character again now, and that's what they should let him do for the entire show because his show is terrible. It's like you can't watch it for more than 5 minutes. I think Jimmy Kimmel is good, but I think Jimmy Fallon is great, and I don't even like Jimmy Fallon on a general level. I find Jimmy Kimmel to be a far more likable human being, but I think that Jimmy Fallon does a really good job at that kind of a show.
Yeah. So going back to the pops look pretty cool this year. They're not like as generic. You got one of him as a stormtrooper. You got one of him as Superman, as a Ghostbuster, and as the new version of Joker. And every night, apparently, he's going to be on, not tonight for some reason, but tomorrow and Sunday, apparently, they're going to have specials of him at Comic-Con. And every night that he's on, you're going to be able to pop in a code online and flush a toilet.
Well, on our most recent episode, you mentioned we talked to Tommy Avalone.
Right.
And Tommy has that new documentary, Ghost Heads, which everybody should check out. It's on Netflix.
Yes.
And Tommy mentioned something about Ghostbusters that I never thought of, which is that unlike every other cosplay, when you're a Ghostbuster, you're yourself as a Ghostbuster. Like everybody I've ever seen as a Ghostbuster they get their own last name on their little jumpsuit.
Right.
And I think Ghostbusters is I think it's so neat, and I think that's cool that he's doing a pop figure for that, because I feel like it is such a universally recognizable personal thing.
Well, even in the last video game that came out for Xbox, I think it was.
You could get it on Xbox, you could get it on Wii and PlayStation 2, and if you got it on PlayStation 2 or Wii, they downgraded the graphics, and I liked them better because they were cartoony rather than that real uncanny valley, real actual human being.
But the thing about that was you weren't playing one of the main four. You were playing quote unquote the rookie, who was basically like a generic looking dude.
So, the movie have a toaster. Is lifting me higher. They got a power glove in this new one. Is there a power glove in the new movie?
Yeah, they have. They come up with all different gadgets and gizmos.
Like, is there a Nintendo joystick that can operate the Statue of Liberty?
No, but did you see? I don't remember if we talked about this last time. That portable NES that's coming out.
Oh, I'm excited about this.
Yeah, that. I tell you, Nintendo's been coming up with some good ideas lately. I mean, that obviously the Pokemon Go thing is a big hit.
Pokemon Go is fascinating how popular it is. The Nintendo. So for anybody that doesn't know, you can download every Nintendo game ever and play them on a million different devices.
Oh yeah. What is that?
If you have an Android smartphone,
I think vnes.com is the website. No, not anymore.
You can go to MU Paradise. You can go to a bunch of different, The Dump. There's a bunch of sites where you can download all the ROMs. There's a lot of apps you can download that will play all your games. And if you get a Kodi box, which I've talked about, I love Kodi, which is the old XBMC. You can play them right on this little tiny box the size of a hockey puck that hooks to your TV. Mm-hmm. And so you can play them on all that. But this new one that they're putting out, while there's nothing it does that you can't do with something else, it's adorable, and I want one.
That's cool. But the Nintendo, it really sounds pretty cool. I mean, it's limited to 20 games. Who knows if they'll expand it?
They probably will. They want more money.
Yeah.
Well, Atari did that. They did those flashback ones, and they would just release a new one every now and then.
Yeah. I have I forget if it's the first version. I think it's the first version where it's just the joystick.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, you just got the old-fashioned Atari joystick with the games built right into it.
Yeah, and you plug it into the TV, and you can play like about 15 or 20 of the games, which, this is the stuff I grew up on, because my sister had those 2600 with the wood finish. So.
I had the Nintendo.
What happened?
I had the Nintendo.
Oh,
that was my first.
Well, Atari was my sister's first. Technically, Sega Master System was my first.
Very nice. My first was the Odyssey 1000, which just played Pong.
I don't know that I've ever played an Odyssey. I know I've played an Intellivision, and I think I've played ColecoVision.
Sure.
Nintendo Nintendo and Sega Genesis.
Yeah.
That was my stuff.
Cool. What was your favorite game?
Sega Genesis? I
Either.
think they had Clue. I think they had Clue for Sega Genesis, and I enjoyed playing it. And Mortal Kombat.
Yeah, I think we rented Clue, but Monopoly was my jam on Genesis, because we always used to play that.
So Clue, you're talking about where you're just playing the Clue board game.
But you get to be the characters, like in the movie.
Oh, now, so they did like a board game version though, where you were literally playing the board game, which was fun because that's a board game you need 3 people to play, and you could play solo. But are you talking about one where it was some kind of adventure game, unrelated, like different than the board game?
Yes. Well, like it was the board game, but you got to pick like you were Plum, Scarlett O'Hara, whichever. Not Scarlett. I always wanted to be Scarlett, obviously. But yeah, and then you're playing it like the board game, where you got to pick the character that you were.
Yeah. Well, if you play the board game, you do get to choose your character, and everybody, and they can accuse you of killing. You can accuse yourself of killing Mr. Body.
Right.
I love that game. It's a great game. The only real downfall is that it needs 3 players, which is, that's, a lot of times when I play board games, it's 2 people. So that's a game that's, that's tough to find that third. You got to find that third wheel.
Harry Potter Clue is fun as well. If you ever.
I've not tried that. I have the Haunted Mansion Clue. That's the one. That's my go-to.
That one I have not played, but
That movie is great. I would love them to remake that.
What, the Eddie Murphy one?
No, not the Haunted Mansion movie. The Clue movie with Tim Curry. I'd love to see that redone. Because that's like you could make that to a totally different story with the same concept, and it's so fun.
Who would you cast?
On the side of my head. All right, let's see. That's a good question. All right, so who would be? I feel like who's that guy from Big Bang Theory that was in the the new Muppet movie as the man or a Muppet?
Oh, Sheldon.
Yeah, I think he would be really good as the butler.
Yes.
You need so let's see. You got to have your Miss Scarlet. You got to have Professor Plum, and you need the Colonel Mustard. That can be like the where you get the older star. The person who it's one of their last films. Your John Voight or somebody like that. I think that's such a great remake. It would be such a great Professor Plum. Like you get like Jim Carrey or somebody. Somebody that's. Oh, I think it'd be such a great movie to remake.
Peter Capaldi.
Oh, exactly.
He could be the butler. Come on, tell me that wouldn't be a little bit.
I think you might be right, yeah.
Or David Tennant as the butler.
No, he could be like the professor, the one that you said Jim Carrey would be good for.
Professor Plum, yeah.
Yes, yeah. Come on.
That'd be great. There's so many great cast members.
Who would be Mr. Green?
Benedict Cumberbatch.
Oh my God, that'd be awesome.
I was going to say Jonah Hill.
Jonah Hill. I like where you're going. And then you have Miss Scarlet, you have Mrs. White, and you have
dead one.
Female. This is you have another color. I think she's not Mrs. Black, but she's
Peacock.
Peacock, yes.
Oh my God. There's so much you can do with that.
Yes. Why haven't they remade Clue?
Communism can be a red herring. Or they can update it. Like radical Islam is a red herring. I'm in. I'm all in. I'm jumping feet first into this.
else do we want to talk about that I wrote down?
What else is there about Comic-Con? Shrek 5?
Shrek 5 is coming out.
Oh,
I'm behind on the Shrek movies. I think I stopped at 3.
You're probably better off. I don't even remember 4. I remember Rumpelstiltskin was involved, and he wished didn't have his life.
Yeah, I gave up. I didn't see Puss in Boots, even though that's my favorite character.
Puss in Boots was funny. Because you had Zach Galifianakis and Salma Hayek, and you had a good cast, you had a good plot.
I love Shrek 2. Shrek 2 to me is the best of the ones I saw.
Shrek 2 was good, but it got played out because they played it on a loop when I worked at Sears. So I feel like I probably know every line in the movie by now.
Where did you work? It sounds like Colleen's at Space.
Yeah, I don't know. I think she's peeing.
So,
no, I was not.
peeing for this long. That would be... Things would be wrong at this point. I feel like they're just like she's trying to fix some kind of large machine and pieces are flying off constantly.
That's exactly what it was. No, I was cleaning something. I'm sorry. I apologize.
It's alright.
Please tell me it's a gun.
Yep, that's exactly it. I was getting ready to play live action Clue. Instead of Pokemon Go, it's Clue Go.
That's not good.
That would be fun.
That would be. That's what they should bring back. That's how they should bring back Clue. Clue in the European version is called Cluedo. CLUUE.
Wait, was John Cleese in it? John Cleese wasn't in the original Clue, right? No.
No. But
He could be.
He would definitely be good in it. You know, Tim Curry can't come back, but John Cleese could totally take over that part.
As Colonel Mustard.
He could do that too.
I think because Peter Capaldi would be a very good butler, and then John Cleese as Colonel Mustard, David Tennant as Professor Plum.
We have the Harold Hessman character who's not on the game, but that would be great. And then the cop, the cop who was also he was Hulk Hogan's manager in No Holds Barred. That actor, you got to replace that character.
Who was the manager? The cop?
Yeah, remember he was a cop. He was like, "There's a lot going on in this place."
No, I
he was
remember.
He was like, "I used to manage Zeus, Hulk Hogan, and I don't know what we're gonna do to beat him." That's the same guy. All I see here is a bunch of people.
Since I've seen No Holds Barred.
It's a great movie. You should see it every week.
No Holds Barred.
Well,
they
no.
Remake it with John Cena.
In my childhood and remake. No.
Remake The Shadow, please, for the love of God.
I would. The Shadow is such a great. That's a great. It's a great story.
Like the Alec Baldwin.
No. Why not? I like that. That version with Alec Baldwin is fun. I know they just did it on How Did This Get Made, and they did not. They did not love it to the degree that I did in 1995.
I don't think many people loved it the way you did. I mean, I don't remember a worse movie having to sit through.
That was the first comic book.
I hated it. It made me cry.
When I was a kid, I got a comic book, like a hardback comic book collection of The Shadow. And so I loved The Shadow. I loved The Shadow so much. And so I think that I kind of understood what I was getting into when it actually came on the screen.
Maybe.
No, I knew what I was getting into, and I was fairly disappointed.
Alec Baldwin as the Shadow.
Yeah, that basically.
Yeah, so I don't know if there's a worse movie that I had to sit through. Although Power Rangers is coming out.
Oh my God, I need more of that.
I don't know how I feel about that yet. I mean, the suits look weird.
I'll give it a try.
Yeah.
Because the show itself was campy as it is. So let's wait till judge when the trailer comes out.
True. I did say that for Ghostbusters, and I was pleasantly surprised. But the suits just look weird.
Go Power Rangers.
And Bryan Cranston is Zordon.
My first exposure to that concept was that movie. I remember the trailer came on, and I was just like, "This looks so great! This looks amazing!" And I went and saw it, and like they're parachuting in, and then they all turn into like the bad guys all turn into gloop. I was like, "This is great!"
Ivan Ooze, aka the guy who played Belloc in Raiders of the Lost Ark. Poor man. What else do I have? Oh, did you hear? What's his name? The guy who played Hamilton.
Lin-Manuel Miranda.
Yeah, he's doing an episode of Drunk History about Hamilton.
Ah, very good.
So that should be fun. Walking Dead, no one watches that here. Ghost Rider on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., that looks like it's going to be interesting.
Call me when they do Ghost Dad on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
That'll be the final season. They'll hire Bill Cosby to come on for the last episode.
You gotta recast. No Bill Cosby.
They could do Bill Cosby. He needs the money now.
No, he doesn't.
He's not gonna have any left.
He should have thought of that.
True.
On that note, I must also bid adieu.
Yeah, I think we should wrap up now because I'm pretty exhausted.
Like Highlander, we're all just everybody drops off until there's only one. All right, well, very good, John Jay. Well, why don't you wrap everything up? Thank everybody for listening.
All right, I thank you, one person, for listening. If you're still listening, most of this I think recorded. I know supposedly we were having sound issues at the beginning, and we fixed them. If you'd like to email us, podcasts@theacpn.com. I put the Twitter and the Facebook up there. You can also call our regular number if you want to leave a message. Eventually I'd like to put it into a podcast, but only 2 people have left messages. So
yeah, leave us some messages. We'll do an all-message show.
Yeah, sounds good. My thanks to Colin Fitzgerald for coming. Guy, do you want to plug the book?
Yes. So you can get my book at sesameplacebook.com. I have a new book that's coming out, so stand by for that. I'll also be in Elmira, New York in the middle of August. Oh. I'll be in Fort Lauderdale in the middle of September for Animate Florida.
What's in Elmira?
Oh, that'll be Twin Tiers Comic-Con. I hope you guys all come out and hang out. That should be a lot of fun. And then
Roberts, Dana Snyder.
That's right.
Carrie Means.
Carrie. That's right. It's going to be...
Maybe I could take a 4-hour drive up there. I might have to...
I hope you do.
Bum a ride off you because I don't think Colleen's interested.
It's going to be a blast. And then December, I will be doing Paradise City Comic-Con in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. So if anybody wants to hire me for November, I'm free.
And then... And as always, go to theacpn.com. You can look us up on iTunes. Just search for ACPN. Also, if we're not, I don't know if we're doing a live show tomorrow night to cover the rest of Comic-Con or whatever. But if there is interest,
if there's news, we got to do it. Yeah.
But if not that, our next live show, the Sharknado live show, July 31st at 8. We are going to be doing live commentary about the 4th Sharknado.
That's right. And Jared from Subway, we're going to talk to him live from prison.
No, we're not. But that would be funny. Colleen?
Yes, dear.
You are the love of my life. You are the light of my life. And thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me, gentlemen.
Okay. And I think I got everything. Again, if you like this show... let us know. Maybe we'll do another one tomorrow night. Who knows? But that's it from us. I am closing the feed. Good night, everybody.
Good night.